Thanks for staying with us. Several companies have implemented mandatory vaccination policies in the workplace. It's one way of raising the number of vaccinations in the country. What are the human rights of workers? General Secretary of the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union, Zola Sapetha, joins us to unpack this. Thank you so much for your time, Zola. We do appreciate it. I just want to get your stance on the fact that government announced in December that they were going to come up with a mandatory vaccination committee to address the issue because of the worrying number of vaccines that had been administered in the country. That picture has not gotten any better, with the number of vaccines administered worrying to the Department of Health. What is Nahao's stance on mandatory vaccinations, and what will you do should government come out and say we all need to be jabbed?
It's hi there and the viewers. It's a pity that the government will always run away from us as workers and make announcements of such a nature. Because we can't recall an opportunity given to us to engage on these matters, culminating to an understanding that will force workers to be subjected to mandatory vaccines. And certainly it's something that we are prepared to fight against, even prepared to go to Constitutional Court to defend the rights of citizens, but also of workers as well.
And maybe just speak to us around whether or not you think this is going to be a human rights violation. And the reason why I ask this is because we are heading towards Human Rights Day. It's on Monday, and many are saying, I cannot be forced to get a vaccine, be it COVID-19 or any other kind of vaccine, because this goes against my human rights, despite the fact that many health experts and scientists say that it's going to protect you from possibly dying from COVID-19. What is your stance with regards to that?
Actually, we want to educate the public that a vaccine is not a chore. It's just an instrument that lessens the viciousness of the virus when it attacks. It's just making your soldiers strong so that they can cope. So it doesn't mean that you cannot contract the virus, neither spreading it. So it should not be argued as if it's a chore. It is not. Secondly, this vaccine arises from nature. So our response should not be because of the regulation or enforcing regulations. Our response should always be drawn from a scientific analysis that help us to appreciate that we need a strategic scientific response to nature, not law blindly implemented, and therefore we shall not accept that. So what we think should be done is that all scientific consideration need to be taken place. For instance, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa provides, particularly Section 12 and 15, the right to freedom. Secondly, also to an opinion to every citizen. So it can't just be a matter of forcing, because there are other, for instance, I have a friend of mine who had vaccinated, and when the friend was to take a booster, he was advised by the doctor not to, given the nature of the chronic illness that is confronted with. So the reason why then we are fighting against, that doesn't appreciate the fact that not everyone else, given the health condition, ought to be vaccinated. So all the things, scientific realities must put to the fore, as opposed to be using law as a disguise to maximize profit.
Sure. Zola, I've run out of time, but I just need to ask you a question with regards to the fact that the national state of disaster has been extended yet again. Does Nahao welcome this, or do you feel as though government should find a different way to address the issues that are brought about by this pandemic?
I must put context in the point that I want to make. We are aware that the government is not quiet, as represented by the Minister of Employment and Labour. We are aware that there are rules that he developed favoring the employer's right Unfortunately, because of the extension of the Disaster Management Act, he could not enforce such because he must wait until the liftment or the liftment of the Disaster Management Act. But it's quite clear that once that is done, the employer, led by the Minister of Employment and Labour, who will in fact enforce those regulations because he has taken a conscious decision to side with an employer. So that's a battle that we will fight, whether the Disaster Management Act is in force or is lifted. But our issue is that we have to defend the right of workers.
Okay, thank you so much. We do appreciate your time and always making time to speak to us. That was Zola Sapetha, who's the General Secretary of the National Education, Health and Allied Workers Union.